evening and welcome to yes, it's just gone 11, it's New Year's Eve, and that can only mean one thing. Yes, in just under an hour, you're going to be kissing someone you've only just met. But if you're not at the party and you're just at home, then welcome along to the studio, which has been specially built for us up here in London's Big Ben. And as you can see, no expense has been spent. And the same goes for the guests. For example, much against our better judgment, Richard Wilson is going to be here this evening. Maureen Lipman is threatening to show up. Alexei Sayle is sadly going to join us as well. Nick Hancock, tragically, is insisting on being present. And Lily Savage is determined to be here too. But one bit of good news, Paul Daniels has kindly agreed to stay at home. So, so let's waste no more time than it takes to say let's waste no more time and get on with our rundown of the past year. That's 1995, in case you've been on the vodka punch since 6 o'clock. The year in which Paula Yates got bigger, Michael Jackson got whiter, and Hugh Grant got caught. Yes, 1995. As a price, just 5p short of 20 quid, and as a year, the best there's been in the last 12 months. A quick resume of some of the leading events of the year, just to refresh your memory. As the British meat industry continued to be hit by the scare over mad cow disease, the government denied that a new strain, mad pig disease, was spreading to humans. President Chirac denied that French atomic tests had affected his 2 Polynesian girlfriends. At British rail stations everywhere, there was chaos during the autumn. Due to the wrong sort of prat on the line. There was an embarrassment for Bill Clinton at the Asian Economic Conference when raw sewage accidentally leaked into the hotel laundry. Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd shrugged his shoulders so much over Bosnia that he suffered a severe neck loss. He was asked whether he thought his neck would ever grow back.
It's to say never. It won't be before about 1999.
Mr. Hurd was in the news again when a kettle element that he'd sold through the small ads turned out to be faulty. In the early summer, Tory poll ratings plunged month by month to new depth until July, when a desperate John Major announced a shock move. He wanted the rest of 1995 cancelled.
I want it ended. Ended now. Not in August, not in September, not in October, not in November, but now.
The success of this tactic led him to formulate a cunning plan to avoid a general election in 1997. He passed a bill to skip straight to 1998.
I've said for years I didn't think 1997 was practicable. I've been proved right. I'm very dubious about 1999.
Before we throw up any more unpleasant memories for you, let me just explain the idea of this evening, which is that it'll be divided into a number of distinct parts, each looking at a different aspect of the year, but which together will make one enormous whole, if you'll pardon the expression. So for the opening part of our whole, as it were, we're going to deal with a subject close to all of your eyes, if you're watching this, television and the wonderful world of showbiz. Yes, I'm sorry, that's all we could get at the last minute. This year started off with controversy as Janet Street Porter was given the job of producing Highway. Meanwhile, controller of BBC One, Alan Yentob, was desperately pursuing Bruce Forsyth in a bid to get him to return to the Generation Game.
Go away. I said, will you go away and stop bothering?
For the first time in his career, Norman Wisdom mysteriously failed to call for help from Mr. Grimsdale. The British film industry stormed back with a state-of-the-art, high-tech science fiction blockbuster that employed all the latest special effects. The televised celebrations on VE Day were marred only by a strange man singing to the Queen Mother. To celebrate the end of cigarette rationing, Princess Margaret held a rooftop smoking party. This autumn, of course, women everywhere were debating one crucial issue. Was Colin Firth the most smouldering Darcy ever? Well, here is Colin Firth, smouldering in the 1995 version of Pride and Prejudice.
Mr. Darcy?
Although it's not that hard to look more smouldering than the Darcy in this 1967 version.
Mr. Darcy's... Don't give me the thief did not expect you until tomorrow.
Miss Elizabeth.
But surely the most smouldering Darcy ever was in the 1980 version, although the casting was a little unconventional. Wins hands down for me, but there we are. In the course of the programme, the past year is going to be dissected, dismantled and generally dismembered by a whole host of semi-names who weren't quite good enough to be chosen for Panto this year. And almost by way of illustration, our first guest tonight has starred in Under the Hammer, Tutti Frutti and One Foot in the Grave, but perhaps he's best known for playing that bloke in the BT ad with Maureen Lipman, Richard Wilson. Well, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Angus.
How are you? Is this how you normally spend New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve, I normally be out enjoying myself. I certainly wouldn't be spending it inside a bloody clock.
So, do you think it's been a good year for TV?
Very good year for TV, but we can't talk about One Foot in the Grave all evening.
No, modest of you to bring it up quite so early.
Well, yes, sorry.
Yes. Well, in my mind, there was only really one big TV story of the year, which was the 35th anniversary of Coronation Street. Did you,
I'd have thought that 35 years is far too long for any programme. I mean, how many series would that be?
94.
94
I think.
series. Well, it's
Yes.
time they stopped it. That's what I can say about that.
So, you didn't tune in to watch Curly and Raquel's wedding, then? You weren't...
I didn't see that because
Right.
I didn't have the money to buy the video of the honeymoon. Apparently, you can buy a video of the honeymoon, but you need a video recorder to watch it. That seems a bit cheeky, doesn't it?
I think it's quite general with videos.
Is it?
Yes. I think you have to have a recorder to watch it for
No,
them.
I don't know about Curly and Raquel.
So what about Channel 4's season of pornography? Is that more up your street, as it were?
Absolutely. A splendid idea. I watched a lot of that.
Did you? You managed...
I kept turning it on.
Yes.
It's wonderful. I think you should do more with that. Bring it into their earlier shows, like 15 to 1. You know. So that when the third bar went down, they sat down, and you see that they're wearing nothing underneath.
Right.
They'd have to make the little stands perspex, of course.
Naturally.
Something like that. Or countdown, 30 seconds to get your clothes off.
It would make quite a lot of programmes more interesting. I mean, Grandstand would be a lot more interesting if they just had a lot of naked
Did Channel
people.
4 do that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, it's only a
No.
matter of time. I'm sure
Yeah.
the BBC will sell that off as well. Yes.
No, I thought that was a very good idea.
So does this mean that you were also rather keen on the launch of Playboy TV? Was that?
Now, I haven't caught up with that.
Right.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, I can tell you.
Were
that
you, are you in it? I mean, you're in most things, Angus, one has to say. What a year for him. 1995, Pursuit of Happiness, One Foot in the Grave. Wonderful, wonderful work there, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to... No, wonderful
Yes,
work.
it was...
wonderful. Wonderful to work with you on it, Angus.
Oh, you were in it as well, were you?
Yes. In a minor role.
Yes, I do remember now, in next door somewhere. So can I move on to the Stephen Fry episode?
Yes.
Suddenly going missing.
I know.
Do you
know.
feel sorry
Well,
for Stephen?
I understood that syndrome. I think it was just something that he misunderstood. I think he read one of the reviews and it said this should run and run and run, and he thought it meant him. I understand that. I remember when I was at the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow, I used to go to the theatre in a bus. And I always used to think, if I cross the road and get on a bus that's going that way, I wouldn't have to go through this tonight. So I think it's something we all know about.
Did that thought occur to you this evening?
No, I didn't get a bus here this evening.
Oh, because we pay for your tube, don't we?
You paid for my tube this evening, which I was very grateful for.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
no.
A nice touch.
Yes, thank you. And what about the story of Bob Monkhouse's joke book? Did you follow that one?
Yes, well, someone has offered £10,000 reward. Bob, presumably. I'd like here on national television to offer 20,000 to leave it where it is.
So you didn't steal it then?
I certainly didn't. It was interesting that I wonder why they were coloured maroon. Interesting, that. Maroon joke books.
That's the colour of his skin, isn't it?
Is it?
I think most of it, yeah.
I did stand next to him at an awards ceremony once and got sort of passive tanning from him.
Yes, he did crop up on Have I Got News For You, in fact, but he was on Paul's team, so I just got tanned down this side. The other curious story, that it struck me as odd, was with Martin Lewis being voted TV's sexiest man. Did you...
Well, of course, I have the News of the World poll. I was voted third sexiest man in... Why are you laughing?
I don't know why it amuses me.
Well, I hadn't even finished the sentence.
Right.
I was voted third sexiest man in British television.
And wisely so.
I also read somewhere, by the way, TV's Mr. Grumpy, Angus Deayton. I thought I was Mr. Grumpy. Why did they call you Grumpy?
It was probably a misprint. They probably meant Mr. Scrumpy.
Scrumpy. Scrumpy and sexy.
That'll be it.
All right.
Yeah. Yes.
What have you been called? What are you known as?
TV's Mr. Sex is
Mr. Sex.
the absurd label that was once attached, yes. But I'm not quite sure...
Where's it attached to?
That's why I was called TV's Mr. Sex.
All right.
No one knows. Generally, you think a good year, bad year, how would you mark it out of 9?
I think a good year for television. I think there's a lot of good television this year. And you were in most of it.
Yes.
And here you are again.
Yes, I mean...
Here again, there's another one.
You can't exactly criticise me for being in Have I Got News For You, One Foot in the Grave and this show, because basically, Richard, you're in them as well. But
yes,
thank you anyway, very much indeed.
Thank you
Richard
very much.
Wilson. Much criticism through the year of various TV programmes, the controversial orgy scene in Tears Before Bedtime, the explicit lesbian scene in Brookside, and of course the full frontal nudity in Cracker. And now for just $14.99 you can get them all on this video, the Dirty Bits 95. Also included are the holiday programme when Jill Dando did that topless limbo dance in Jamaica, the lingering kiss on Match of the Day between Alan Hansen and Trevor Brooking, and the unfortunate incident with the sheep on One Man and His Dog, or One Dog and His Sheep, as it was later known. Well, you're watching the end of the year show. Right, well, I'm sorry about that. A slight complication that we might have foreseen. OK, oh, God, I almost forgot. Right, sorry about that. Now, where were we? Well, I believe a famous playwright once said, if music be the food of love, play on. Although it's almost certain he wouldn't have said that if he'd been listening to a Wakefield record at the time. But it's time now to look at music and artists of the year, formerly known as 1995. Yes, music, if anyone can remember what it sounds like. And as the Beatles reformed this year, it was clear that the years had not been kind to Yoko Ono. Using new technology, Robson and Jerome's latest single is delivered to record shops all around the country. Michael Jackson denied that the size of his new statue reflected his ego. However, there was relief when a pigeon was discovered large enough to crap on the statue's head. The westernisation of the former Soviet Union continued as the format of Top of the Pops was sold to Russia. And on Russian TV, the big debate centred on the age-old question.
Сядьте, пожалуйста. Сядьте, пожалуйста. Как можно? Что такое-то? Сядьте, пожалуйста.
Meanwhile, it was clear that the Koreans had equally strong feelings on the subject. In Britain, too, it was Blur versus Oasis. You could choose between Blur's chirpy Cockney attitude or Oasis's dour northern grit.
Today was gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you.
Oasis knew that serious rock and rollers don't smile and were voted band least likely to sing Boom Boom Boom, Everyone Say Way Oh Way. While Supergrass showed heavy Michael Jackson influence in their debut video. The singer is in bed with two young men, but they're just having innocent fun. More recently, Michael Jackson kept the Beatles off #1. The Fab Three released a song despite their singer having been murdered, while Robson and Jerome contented themselves with just murdering the songs. Ever since the release of Free as a Bird, the hunt has been on for more unpublished home tapes of John Lennon, which the other three Beatles can then record the backing to. And we've been given permission to play a snippet from the brand new Beatles single to be released next year, or tomorrow, in fact.
Hello, this is John. I'm afraid no one's in at the moment. But if you'd like to leave a message, you can do so after the beep.
Well, here to tell us exactly what's been what on the music scene in the last year, a man who not only is regarded as the godfather of Britpop with his hit Hello John Got a New Motor, but also shifted over 1 million albums in the 80s when he worked as a forklift truck driver for EMI. Hip dude of the coolest order, please welcome Alexei Sayle. Alexei, my main man.
Dude, happening slamming in the house.
Sorry.
Ow!
You've lost me already. I don't think I know what you're talking about. So how do you normally spend New Year's Eve then?
I normally spend New Year's Eve with the sick and with the lame.
I see.
Because I've got really pissed and I'm in casualty, you know.
Yeah.
Kiss a vending machine.
And then suddenly this princess walks in. So, so what are the kids on the street listening to? Is that the right expression?
The kids on the street, the hip happening dudes,
Right.
are, I think, the hippest thing that's happening is rap, and gangster rap, I think, is the really slamming thing.
What exactly is
Well,
gangster
it's a
rap?
controversial kind of thing. You have to have really shot somebody to be a to be a star. So the band of the Coldstream Guards will probably do very well. It's all about the kind of the hard, tough kind of urban edge, you know, of living in South Central. There's an Ice Cube song which goes something like, "It was a good day, I didn't have to use my AK. Nobody I knew got killed today in South Central LA." And it's very similar for me, where I live in Brixton. I don't live in Brixton. I don't know why I said that. It's a vending machine. New Year's Eve. There's a hole here. Hello. My friend Jeffrey's in the hole here. Hello, Jeffrey.
It's Jeffrey the Monitor. Sorry.
I'm in the hole. Hello. Sorry. I live in Bloomsbury in central London. And it's very similar for me, you know, it was a good day in Bloomsbury, I didn't have to utter a witty aphorism. You know, I mean, I'm not a fan of live music, because, as I say, I'm in a kind of disco, I'm a bit of a disco bunny, in fact. You know, a bit of Erasure, Oh L'amour, stuff like that, Pet Shop Boys. I'm into that sort of a scene, so I don't really like... No. Oh, God, shut up! Oh, God.
I mean,
I'm Lily Savage as well. Christ, I'll be back later with me wig on, oh God. I like dance music. I don't like live music because it seems to me that it's very limited. You know, you just kind of stand there. The stage is about a mile away. You know, when you go and see a concert, it says on the tickets Michael Jackson, but it could be Michael Heseltine. It's a killer thriller. But maybe it was. That's why he collapsed the other week in New York.
It all makes sense. So, I mean, what about some of the bands that are still around, that are still touring? I mean, you're not a fan of U2 or any of the old...
U2, you see, U2, they're more than a band, aren't they? They're a philosophy. Except in France where they're a range of soft cheeses. No, but Bono, they call him that because that's what his head's made of. I don't mind U2 because at least they're contemporary. I mean, all those old geezers. Like Pink Floyd. It's like 3 estate agents on stage and it comes.
Yeah, well, they are estate agents, I think, now, aren't they?
Well, they're so rich that they can indulge their hobbies as estate agents.
Like
That's what they do.
They buy entire streets, I think.
And then sell them to each other.
What about the Beatles? Were you a John or a Paul?
My favourite Beatle was actually that bloke who filled in as the drummer when they went on tour in Australia. Do you remember? Jimmy Sludge or something he was called. I knew the Beatles. John Lennon thought of me as the brother he never wanted. And that's actually Brian Epstein, their manager, is my second cousin.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
Well, it's certainly not a joke, so it must be true. But I mean, I was always rather keen on hello. I was quite keen on Ringo, didn't you? I mean, a lot of people said he wasn't the best drummer in the world, but I mean,
Ringo.
A lot of people said he wasn't the best drummer in the Beatles. Actually. So predictions for '96. What's going to happen in the music scene?
On the music scene. It's going to be a lot of crap. It's going to be a lot of crap, and people are going to buy it.
Do you think that we're going to get bands coming back?
Yeah.
Dire Straits, are they going to come back as well?
Dire Straits.
You've always been a big fan of Dire Straits.
People used to say about Mark Knopfler, and they say, so nice. When you meet him, he's really nice. Something you say about biscuits, isn't it? No, I believe that, you know, music should be ugly, raw. So we'll be bringing out a remix of Hello, John Got New Mojo.
Yeah, sounds like it. Thank you very much. Alexei, Sayle. Well, as the witching hour gets closer, let's see how people are celebrating in the capital, viewed from our exclusive camera position up here on top of Big Ben. Well, there's a woman who knows how to enjoy herself. Couple down there, oh yes. I think there's a couple who think it's midnight already by the looks of things. Let's hope their partners aren't watching. Oh, and there's someone who never has a night off. That's a car thief. Makes it pretty easy, really. If that's your car, by the way, it's just been stolen. Yes, there's the Junior Minister for Health, just making his way home after a bit of a session at the Commons Bar. Obviously, obviously just double-checking that the new Health Department guideline of 28 units a week is correct. All these pictures, by the way, brought to you by Derek, our brave and trusty cameraman. Who's kindly plummeted to almost certain death at show business. So it's now time to turn our increasingly blurred gaze to the wacky world of politics, and as would be a more appropriate title for this government, Current Affairs. Terrific. In the political sphere, then, this year, moments before an international flight, Dennis Thatcher was finally persuaded to leave the airport bar and board the plane. This year, Eurostar saw its passenger traffic increase, although there were still a few teething problems with the English side of the high school. Military training procedures were revised when it turned out new recruits to the army were being given their parachute instruction manuals far too late. At a press conference, John Major was asked who he thought was in charge of the country.
I have no idea. That's not a question for me.
And there were more problems for John Major when at this year's Lord Mayor's banquet, his Pamela Anderson joke went down rather badly. Later on that same day, the Prime Minister hit upon a novel way of getting rid of evidence after you've been picking your nose. At the Labour Party conference, Roy Hattersley made an unexpectedly popular speech.
Because it is right, it is true, and it's the way to win votes as well as build a better Britain.
Popular, that is, except with the man who had to clean up afterwards. As Geoffrey Archer signed a massive new publishing deal, he revealed that he'd asked his colleague John Redwood to script edit his next novel. He then asked Douglas Hurd to listen to him reading it out.
It was an exciting moonlit night as Constantine was a sleek black
Education and a breakthrough in the struggle to reduce class numbers. Education Minister Gillian Shepherd attended trials of a radical new method of pupil selection. She was told in The Real Thing the drop would be 30 foot over a pit of rattlesnakes. But does Gillian Shepherd have a secret sex life? What exactly does she fantasise about?
6 of the best for Tony Blair.
Anything else?
Plenty of fudge.
I see. But what if your lover gets bored of you?
If the head's good, you won't have these problems.
Right. And if it isn't good, how would you tell him?
Communicate by grunt.
Yes, obviously. So, Gillian, can you tell us the secret of who your new lover is?
I can reveal that this is to be Trevor MacDonald.
And there, mercifully, we have to leave it. Of course, it can be lonely at the top, as John Major would no doubt tell us. Here, he shares with us the moments when he feels like having sex.
Before breakfast, before lunch, before dinner and before tea.
And perhaps most surprisingly...
Get up and do it again before breakfast on the Today programme.
Well, I must listen to it more carefully in future. So, who could he turn to for comfort?
I asked Humphrey the cat about that.
And what happened?
I've never seen him move so fast.
So, who did he finally end up with?
My goldfish.
But what about Michael Heseltine? Fears over the scale of his new office grew as the stationery began to arrive. And further questions were asked about Michael Heseltine's loyalty.
Everything that goes wrong is the government's fault.
And indeed, not only his loyalty, but his sanity.
About turn!
But one of the advantages of a show like this is that being New Year's Eve, you know that people like Geoffrey Archer and Michael Winner and so forth are going to be lauding it at various sort of knobby functions, so you can get away with saying that Geoffrey Archer is a complete... Which is probably why she knew that he didn't have spots on his back in the first place. Anyway, so much for that. Abroad now, and President Clinton's reaction was spontaneous when Boris Yeltsin announced he had decided to give up drinking. The Queen and Prince Philip visited New Zealand, where they met with many protests about French nuclear tests. The Prince was interested to be shown a dachshund that had swum in the South Pacific recently. After the Queen returned from New Zealand on a scheduled flight, other celebrities rushed to follow suit, led by the Pope, who went economy class and even had to queue for the toilet. Not surprisingly, since he'd just found out who was flying the plane. Mr. Major accidentally bringing the plane down in the middle of the A23 near Crawley. Michael Portillo's public stance as a patriotic Englishman, scornful of foreigners, was weakened when he was secretly filmed talking in fluent Spanish to a group of visitors from Spain.
Y junto con Tony Blair, el líder del Partido Laborista, formamos el Club del Año 53. Pero aquellos dos me dan un gran...
Afterwards, Mr. Portillo was informed that his speech had been secretly filmed. He remained unperturbed. The Prime Minister joins us now from our Southampton studio. Prime Minister, can you tell us what it's like having Michael Portillo in your cabinet?
A little like trying to wrestle with a greasy pig.
And now we have a bit of an exclusive, as Lady Thatcher is currently in our Birmingham studio. Mrs. Thatcher, I believe you spent the Christmas with Mr. Major and his family. Did you enjoy that?
Not in the least.
I see. So what were your feelings when you left?
Never go back.
Right, I understand your husband asked for a second bottle of whiskey. What did Mr. Major say to that?
No, no, no.
Apparently you turned a bit aggressive and started swearing at him. What happened then?
I was turned out.
Yes. And what was Dennis wearing at the time?
Pure rubber.
I think we always suspected. Well, it's time now to welcome our next guest, and quite frankly, who better to help us delve into the complex and difficult world of international geopolitics than Lily Savage. Sorry about this. Hello? Yes, of course it's me. Who do you expect it to be? Well, where is she? Well, couldn't they have arrested her after the show? Right. No, I'll come down. I'm sorry about this. It seems that Ms. Savage is currently residing at Her Majesty's pleasure in the cells under the Houses of Parliament, so I'd better do a quick divine brown and go down as quickly as possible. Excuse me. Lily, what's going on? There's a whole studio audience upstairs waiting for you.
Oh, Angus, have been involved in a fracas. They wouldn't let me in, would they?
Why?
They said I was unsuitably dressed. Now, what's wrong with this nice little hogmanay outfit? You should have seen Edwina Curry behind me in a boob tube and a denim miniskirt. I said, that kind of game went out with the Bay City Rollers, Edwina. You're not with this, honest to God. Saying I'm unsuitably dressed, please. I even went home and got a bin liner and a tangerine, but they still wouldn't let me in. It's not fair.
Well, in that case, we're going to have to do the interview here. Is that all right with you?
I've got no choice, have I? I'm like Ruth Ellis, locked in here. Look, I want to live. Don't send me to the chair, Governor, please.
You know what you're supposed to be doing, don't you? You're looking at the major international news events of the year.
Yeah.
OK, so what's your first one, then?
Well, nobody's watching, so I can tell you. See these? Do you recognise them? This bit of Tom. I'll give you the clue. Red hair, slapper. What happened was, I mean, she packs a suitcase, Fergie, like a girl on an 18 to 30 holiday in Lorette de Mar. She just chucks a lot in, you know what I mean? Oh, I've left a bra on the radiator, lobs it in and goes. She doesn't even lock her case. She deserves to have her jewellery nicked.
Do I take it that if you were invited to Prince Edward's wedding next year, that you wouldn't take the invitation?
Oh, no, I'd go. I just want to see what his frock looks like. I'll definitely go to Edward's wedding. See, do you know what worries me about Edward? Because you read in the tabloids, one day he's gay, the next day he's straight, one day... They can't make up their mind, the tabloids. I was putting the paper down the other day for the dog to have a wee on, and I was just looking, and it said, Edward by his old school chum. It said, Prince Edward is a raver and is always chasing girls. So I just stood there, you know, and looked, and I thought, well, my dog's always chasing cars, but I can't drive him when it catches them, so I'm saying... No, royalty, don't get me on about royalty.
We can't slag off royalty for the entire evening.
Oh, I've no
much
intentions of. Just the thing is, people say they're good for tourism, but, I mean, so's the Tower of London, but that's not in the paper having its toe sucked, is it?
Fair point. Now, what about some of the more, serious topics of the year?
What, like?
How about the National Lottery?
Please. Now, I am eligible for a big win, because the only people who seem to win the lottery have either got illegitimate children, drink problems, or criminal backgrounds, so I should win a couple of million stuck in here now tonight.
So if you won, what would you spend it on?
Well, I wouldn't be like these people who, when they win £6 million, and they go down on the coach with the sister-in-law, and they take the cheque off Jimmy Tarbuck, and they turn around and they say, it won't change my life. Well, give it back then, if it's not going to change your life. Don't be so selfish, you just want $6 million. And they say, oh, I couldn't leave my job. They're working in some naff little factory, and oh, I'd miss me friends. Bugger your friends, you'll be out with Britt Eklund somewhere. Oh, I couldn't be doing none of that. If I won £6 million, I'd need to spend it on round-the-clock nursing, because I'd have a stroke with shock, I'm telling you. Honest to God.
But what about the government, if we could look at them? Well, a hideous thought, actually, looking at them. But,
which one?
Well, Michael Portillo, I gather, was voted the most fanciable man by gays this year.
I don't believe
Did
that.
you see that?
No, not the Queens. They're a bit more discerning than that. I think it's the S&M lot who fancy him. I bet in his back bedroom it's wall-to-wall PVC, you know, with just a whiff of rubber. I'm telling you. I bet you're underneath that polycotton shirt there's nipple clamps. Here's my tea. Thanks very much, love. Just sling it down there. Thank you. Brings a bit of cake, will you? Battenberg, if you've got it. A couple of biscuits. Tar.
How do you sort this treatment out?
Easy. We're in Westminster, aren't we? You know how corrupt that lot are. Get them into your thumb like that. I promise them a bit of knock-off jewellery. It's a nice shop about, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. Well, thanks for talking to us, Lily. I've got to
You're
go back
welcome.
and
Okay.
do the rest of the show now. But, you stay there anyway.
I've got no choice, have I? Let's face it.
No, you haven't got much option, really, have you? But whilst I pop back up the remaining 4,093 steps to the studio, I'll leave you in the capable hands of a live, able-bodied troupe of youths who virtually turned bashing dustbin lids into an art form. Please put your hands over your ears for the eruditely named Stomp. I'll see you later. Well, Stomp there. One of these days they're going to remember to bring their instruments with them. Well, we've just heard from Buckingham Palace that following Princess Diana's absence from Sandringham this Christmas, the royal family, to show their no hard feelings, are officially inviting her on a New Year's Day shooting party in Norfolk. They're going to give her half an hour start. And speaking of royal family, leads us neatly on to our next subject, sleaze. What a year it's been. Is it me, or are they getting better? A close friend of the Prince of Wales revealed how Charles admitted to finding Camilla devastatingly attractive.
I said to Prince Charles, I said, "Sir, you're in the unique position of being the only person in the world who can say that line."
With Charles obsessed with his new love, Princess Di continued her much-publicised campaign against drug abuse by demonstrating the terrible effects they can have.
Niho no minasama konnichiwa.
A financial sleaze and Barings Bank found a new position for the man who recruited Nick Leeson. At long last, it emerged exactly how Andrew Neil manages to get his beautiful young girlfriends. In the Middle East, years of sexual repression were ended when an exciting sex aid came on the open market for the very first time. The Yasser Arafat blow-up doll. In London's East End, the infamous gangster Ronald Cray passed away. The family had hoped to give Ronnie a traditional East End funeral, but sadly, there was a cement shortage and no motorway overpass was being built at the time. There were massive floral tributes to the deceased, and a linguistics expert from Cambridge was brought in to make sure his name was spelt correctly. Of course, one of the major scandals of the century, never mind a year, was the trial of O.J. Simpson, who, in trying to fit the glove on, very nearly blew his chances of ever getting a job as an actor again. The jury in the trial was just as much part of the ordeal as the witnesses and defendant, and although remaining anonymous, they've since become overnight celebrities. In fact, one of them apparently agreed to pose for Playboy centerfold. So from seeing nothing of her at all, we're going to go and see every last crevice by the sound of it. It's also now legal to show footage of the jury during the trial, which, of course, which we're never able to do beforehand. And who can forget that gripping moment when O.J. showed the jury his supposedly arthritic finger? Well, 1995 was the... Should do it? Sorry, as I was saying. Well, I'm sure we've only scratched the surface, but to help get a more in-depth look at the scandalous, immoral behaviour that I'm sure any right-thinking person will have thoroughly enjoyed reading about, please welcome the star of Agony, About Face and Rejoice, but you probably know her better as that woman who was in the BT ad with Richard Wilson, Maureen Lipman. Welcome to Big Ben.
Thank you.
Are you missing any good parties tonight?
I was invited to a hot tub party in Muswell Hill for a Chinese takeaway, so I came here.
Now, let's start with one of the less publicised stories of the year. Now, Charles and Di have been in a spot of bother. I don't know
Is
if
everybody supposed to know about that?
Well,
can I mention it?
News has filtered through to one or two people, yeah.
Wow, well, you know, she did say a year ago she was going to keep her head down, and she hasn't let us down, really, has she? I think there's a fantastic solution to this. She's overexposed. She needs a coat. If she has to go to the gym in those little Linford Christie jobs, and her legs are showing, and she has to go to premieres with her back and her things showing, and, you know, if somebody out there like C&A or Burkatex would just get a nice bit of worsted,
yes.
You know, good quality, make the girl a coat, she could cover up all those bits she doesn't want us to see, the paparazzi wouldn't bother to film it, and they could go back to harassing Gillian Tailfoot, and
it's true.
It would all be solved. She could then go about being an ambassador for Kingston Rovers or whatever it is you want to do.
Queen of her hearts, I think, is what she wanted.
Yeah.
Did you see the interview?
Yeah, I did. I taped it, and for some reason the cassette keeps throwing itself off the shelf. You know?
So, do you think she's going to become our Queen of Hearts? And I mean, is she qualified for that?
I don't know, really. It's the CV that's a bit worrying, isn't it, really, you know? Self-laceration, bulimia, colonic irrigation, adultery, throwing yourself down the stairs. Yeah, she'll get the job.
She'll get the job. I mean, someone said at the time, I think, that it's just as well she doesn't become queen, because she'd never actually be able to keep the crown on because of the way she always sort of...
Yeah.
What about these hospital visits? I mean, do you think they were bona fide, the ones that she makes in the dead of night?
Bone of contention, more like, aren't they, really? I don't know. I think she does that extremely well. I have to hand it to her. And I'm the only one who doesn't. Yeah, no, I think that's me. I don't know. Did she visit the Queen, Mum? I've come to hold your hand. Piss off.
But no discussion about sleaze would be complete without mention of Hugh Grant, of course.
Huge rant, yes. Yeah. Well, it was, I don't know, was it a great PR stunt, Angus? If it was the best ever, you know. No, but isn't it funny that, you know, it's been great for sort of, you know, women of my age, because you've got Liz Hurley, you've got Helena Christensen, and you've got Princess Di, whom any woman would give their bridge work up for to look like, right? And they're all with men who are cheating on them with women who look like us. So it's really a sort of a triumph of HRT over HR, if you like.
Yes. I mean, did you see the news about the split up of the marriage of Liz Taylor and Larry Fitzgerald? I mean, did that hit you badly?
Shattered.
I mean, were you... Yes,
Shattered.
I can imagine.
How did that one go wrong? You could have knocked me down with a Tupperware broomstick when that one went wrong. It was a marriage made in Hendon. It was fantastic. You know, they got married at Jacko's ranch. There was llamas, there were helicopters, there were... You know, she was a wonderful, warm, worldly, wise, wealthy woman, bit of a wino, but he was an alcoholic construction worker. How did it go wrong?
It's kind of weird. Where did they meet? Okay.
They met at a rehab centre. She was in for addiction to wedding cake, and I don't know. It looked to me so perfect.
I mean, how could he afford to go to a rehab centre? I mean,
yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Builder, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe he built it. You know how hard it is to get rid of builders. You know, once they're in there.
Couldn't get rid of them, yeah. What about Mark Thatcher? Now, he's at long last. He has been issued with this civil writ for £14 million.
Yeah, he has, and he's issued a plea of mummy. She'll get him out of it.
Generally works, I think, yeah.
She'll get him out of it, or he'll get her into it. I think she will get him out of it somehow. It's very sad for her. She's got a definite sort of BSE look in her eye at the moment, hasn't she? And he's up for perjury, and he's up for theft, and he's up for assault, and he's going to make a good politician one day.
Yes, he is. But don't you feel sympathy for either of them?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
The lying Maureen Lipman. Thank you very much, Maureen. Well, our party board has finally come up with a winner for Britain's most exciting New Year's Eve party as we go over live to 17 Hounslow Court, West Bromwich. Looks like we may have got there too late. Oh no, it's not due to start for another half hour. Apparently, West Bromwich always looks like that. Inevitably, every year is tinged with sadness, and 1995 has been no exception. In March of this year, the film director Michael Winner sadly failed to pass away, and is tragically still with us. He was 53. In June, Keith Chegrin caught a severe dose of Asian flu and within days, catastrophically, was well again. In August, a plane came down in the middle of the Tibetan Himalayas. Disastrously, none of the Wimbledon football team were on board. In September, a double sadness. The comedy world mourned as Peter Cook passed away unexpectedly and Jim Davidson remained alive and healthy. In October, news reached us of Luciano Pavarotti collapsing on stage from exhaustion. Not in itself a catastrophe, but sadly, Rupert Murdoch was not underneath him at the time. Well, 1995 has been a glittering year for British sport. The first winner at Wimbledon for 60 years, the British football teams picking up all 3 major European trophies, the English victory over the All Blacks at Twickenham, and that enormous pig I can see vaulting over the studio as I speak. But let's troll through the mire of our achievements as we look at sport in 1995. And after the 1994 Grand National fiasco, Aintree officials were taking no chances when they appointed a new starter for this year's race. Meanwhile, Jonah Lomu's teammates took on the role of the English defence to prepare him for the sort of resistance he would encounter. Motor racing, and Damon Hill finally found a car that could get him past Michael Schumacher. Nigel Mansell was asked what went through his head when he saw Linford Christie in his lycra shorts.
You know, you look at it from the front and you think, flip. And then you look at it from the side and it's even more impressive, so...
Britain achieved a spectacular breakthrough in sports coaching when England cricket manager Ray Illingworth was asked why his batsmen did not score more runs.
They kept getting out.
In athletics, the Serbo-Croat relay team ran into difficulties when it came to exchanging the baton. And at long last, semantics experts came up with a translation of the hacker. Well, joining me now to analyse those and other sports stories, here is a man who's a football fan and a comedian, and to prove it, he supports Stoke. Chairman of They Think It's All Over, it is now Nick Hancock.
Cool, that, wasn't it?
Yes.
I just thought it went like that.
It's always a good idea when you're wearing an electronic microphone as well.
Hi, girls.
Yes. Good evening, how are you?
Not too bad, a little wet.
Yes, evidently. So, do you think it was a bad year or a good year for sport? I reckon it was a bit of a bad one, wasn't it?
Absolutely appalling. So depressing. I mean, it's got to be a bit of a clue, I think, when the BBC Sports Personality of the Year is a bloke who does the hop, skip and a jump. You know, I mean, and he was fantastic, Jonathan Edwards, but you just got to think, hop, skip and a jump. Wasn't that the sort of thing you did when it was too wet for football at school? No, so it's like the Sports Personality of the Year being someone who's good at British Bulldog or Pirates or something like that.
I mean, surely there must be a place for minority sports.
Oh, there's a place for it, and I think it's probably Pontins. And the trouble is, that's all we're going to get is minority sports, because Sky have got the Premier League, the NZ League, the Ryder Cup and the cricket now. So what grandstand's going to look like, I don't know. It's going to be like... And on Football Focus, we're going to be looking at a very important game of 3 and in from Streatham Common. And in athletics, Steve Ryder's going to be at his nephew's school for coverage of the father's race.
Yes, they've got the contract for the underwater show jumping, though, so that's excellent. Yes. So, but there have been some sporting heroes this year. I mean, I'm thinking of sort of Colin Jackson and Damon Hill. I mean,
Damon Hill, for goodness' sake!
What's wrong with Damon Hill?
Well, for a start, he does motorsport, which is a sport, and that's an oxymoron to me anyway. Motorsport, you know, it's not about sport. It's about technology. To say you're a fan of motorsport is like saying you're a fan of the Black & Decker Workmate. It's completely stupid, and I don't understand it either. I mean, how, in motorsport, right, how can Ferrari lose to Benetton, right? Ferrari, OK, are a company that day in, day out, make the world's most prestigious cars, right? And Benetton are a company that make knitwear. It's like Porsche losing to British Home Stores. And also, like, the cars are meant to be the ultimate cars, right? And I've just bought a car. You wouldn't buy a car like that. It hasn't got a roof, right? It hasn't got a cassette player. Well, what the bloody hell's the point, quite honestly? And they're so pompous as well. If they lose, motor racing drivers, I've noticed, there's been a problem with the car. And if they win, they're brilliant drivers, you know? They never say, oh, I won, because, like, I got in the car, and then I just put my foot right down, like that, and went round in a circle a load of times. And I get paid £5 million a year for that. That's brilliant, isn't it?
It would be interesting to see what they were like in a normal car, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they should do. They should put Schumacher and Hill, right, in a Vauxhall Astra on the Wandsworth one-way system. First one to get home, they win. Fair enough.
So, thumbs down for motor racing, basically?
Well, thumbs down for almost all sports. I'm thinking about this, I've realised that I only really like football and cricket, quite honestly.
OK, so what about the football scene? Do you think we've had a successful year?
Yeah, but, well, no, it's been a really depressing year, really. But we should have seen that coming, because the year began with Alex Ferguson getting an OBE. What for? Services to being a whinging git, presumably.
You do realise you're talking to a Manchester United fan?
I do, and that's why I'm enjoying it so much.
Yes. I may have to resort to
So let's get on to Eric Cantona, that's what I say.
Yes, badly mistreated this year.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I said at the time, the thing about Cantona jumping into the crowd that time was, it was disgraceful, it was reprehensible, it was upsetting, but most of all, it was very, very funny. Very pleasing. This guy, what was that quote that he came out with as well?
Oh, the sardines following the trawler.
When the seagulls follow the trawler,
oh, that's right,
it is because they believe that sardines will be thrown into the sea. And that was sort of thinking, that's like one of those meetings in a spy film. You know, you expected somebody else to come in then and say, yes, and the dolphins too will wear trench coats. I had this image at the time of like someone from MI5 listening to that interview, you know, and then suddenly going off and killing 4 Bulgarian diplomats.
It could well have happened. We would never have known. No. What do you think about Giannino? Do you rate him as a...
I think he's fantastic. I think it'd be very interesting for him to go to Middlesbrough, you know, coming from Brazil and going to Middlesbrough. But then again, he's 5'5" and he can't speak any English, so he should be at home on Teesside. But can I just say, I thought...
Thank you. Well, you've just lost us 200,000 viewers on Teesside.
Yeah, but none of them paid their licence fees. So.
OK, well, can I finally ask you about red rum? I mean, you must have shed a tear when you found it.
I did. That was absolutely terrible. But the great thing for red rum is that, you know, although red rum's gone, red rum will always be the housewife's favourite, you know, and especially now at 57p a can.
And on that delightful note, ladies and gentlemen, thank, please, Nick Hancock. Well, we've got hold of some 1996 calendars. You can now buy a calendar for just about any group or celebrity you care to name. But this, first of all, is a Stephen Fry calendar. As you can see, most of February is missing. Here we've got the official Nick Leeson calendar. It costs a lot of money, but you do get 6 years. And here's the Yorkshire Waters calendar. Sadly, it runs out in mid-July. That's a bit of a drawback, but there we go. Still a minute or two to go, so in case some viewers may not have cable or satellite TV, we can do a quick trawl around some of these satellite channels for you to see how they're covering New Year's Eve. Here on UK Living, for example, there's a special Hogmanay interview there with a Scotsman.
Well, of course, Hogmanay is a very important celebration.
On the shopping channel, you can buy an orange squeezer.
This attractive and stylish juicer
from
can be used for
a
just
Scotsman. Over on Discovery Channel, there's a documentary on the life cycle of the female otter. Oh, it's presented by a Scotsman again. And on the Playboy channel, finally, there's the Swedish film Sven and Erika, and a Scotsman. Of course, all of tonight's show has been brought to you without the aid of kilt or bagpipe. I hope you appreciate the effort that's gone into doing that. And in the remaining seconds until midnight, as we brace ourselves for that almighty dong, let's just remind you of the New Year's honours list, which you may have missed yesterday. Many thanks for watching. Thanks to my guests. Earlier on, we conducted a poll with the audience as to whether I should end with singing a song or hurling myself from the top of Big Ben. So thanks for your votes and Happy New Year.